So again, welcome. This is a webinar. We're going to talk about what we're looking forward to host the G20 2026 G20 MACS be a site host for us. This is a unique opportunity to showcase U.S. agriculture and innovation. And with that, I will get things going. Okay, so welcome again. I would like to get to know everyone. If you could please just take a moment to introduce yourself and your organization in the chat. So share your name, your title, your organization, your interest in hosting the G20 2026 MACS as a site host, or if you're just interested in joining as part of a consortium. Just go ahead and drop it in. It's at any time during the meeting today. So with that, I'm going to hand this over to Jamie Adams. She's going to talk about what the G20 is, and then we're going to go from there. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Bree, and welcome everyone. Good afternoon or good morning, depending on where you're calling from today. Really appreciate you all joining us. Again, my name is Jamie Adams, Senior Advisor for International Affairs in the Office of the Chief Scientist at the U.S. Department of Agriculture. As Bree mentioned, we're going to take you through some background, and then we'll dive a little bit deeper into the process that is available for applying to serve as the site host of the 2026 G20 Meeting of Agricultural Chief Scientists. So we thought we'd start with some basic information. So apologies for those of you who may already have this background, but it's important to give a little bit of context about what the G20 is and how all the pieces fit together in the lead up to the United States serving as the host of the G20 in 2026. So the Group of 20, or referred to quite often as the G20, is a global forum for international economic cooperation. It brings together the largest economies in the world to address key global economic challenges. And as you can see here listed, I won't read all the countries that are comprised in the G20, but I'll also highlight that the G20 includes these countries listed here on the slide, but also the European Union, and most recently, the African Union joined the G20, two distinct regional bodies in the world. The members of the G20 represent about 80% of global gross domestic product, or GDP, over 75% of global trade, and about 2/3 of the world's population. So it is one of the largest multilateral bodies. And the key roles of the G20 are shaping the global economy, addressing major issues like trade, climate change, and sustainable development, encouraging collaboration, fostering cooperation amongst the member countries and the regional bodies, and influencing global policy, impacting economic policies and regulations. Next slide. And so how the G20 works, the G20 operates through a two-track approach. And so we call the two tracks the finance track and the Sherpa track. The G20 has its roots in finance. And so the G20 was first started and led by finance ministers and central bank governors in the world. And the finance track focuses on economic and financial issues. The Sherpa track is led by personal representatives of the G20 leaders, or Sherpas as they're referred to. So the United States will have a Sherpa who represents the president during key conversations in the lead up to every annual G20 meeting. The Sherpa track also coordinates a broader G20 agenda, including social, environmental, and security issues. The Agriculture Working Group falls under the Sherpa track. And that's the working group that we'll talk in more detail about here in just a minute. The G20 presidency rotates every year. So a different G20 member country holds the presidency each year. So you may have seen this year it was Brazil. Next year it'll be South Africa. And then in 2026, it'll be the United States. The presidency sets the agenda and the priorities for that year. And usually the work will start ahead of the year. And as we're discussing today in 2024 for meetings in 2026, a lot of the logistics have already started for the US hosting G20 in 2026. And as we're going to go through a transition in the United States, we'll be waiting to discuss with new leadership about the priorities and the agenda, specific topics, themes, and so forth once new leadership takes office after inauguration on January 20th. The presidency is supported by a troika. So each year there is the previous, current, and incoming presidencies. And so right now the troika is Brazil, South Africa, and the United States as we phase into 2025. And then, of course, what we're here to discuss today, the United States has been announced that it will hold the presidency of the G20 in 2026. Next slide. And so what is USDA's role and what is the G20 MACS? The G20 MACS is a component of the Agriculture Working Group. So as I mentioned earlier, there are two tracks, the financial track and the Sherpa track. The Agricultural Working Group, as I mentioned, sits under the Sherpa track. It facilitates discussions and collaborations between the G20 agriculture ministers. So in our case, in the United States, the Secretary of Agriculture. Mexico is also a Secretary of Agriculture. There is a Minister of Agriculture in Canada, and so on and so forth. These G20 agricultural ministers focus on shaping global agricultural policy and advancing sustainable agriculture. And the track itself, or the Agricultural Working Group, concludes with a Ministers of Agriculture meeting. So in 2026, USDA will be responsible for facilitating the broader Agriculture Working Group that's nested under the Sherpa track, including arranging a ministerial of agriculture ministers. And the G20 MACS connection to the agriculture ministers, we usually have the G20 MACS, the meeting of agricultural chief scientists, earlier in the year, and that provides valuable scientific input and recommendations that feeds into this agriculture working group and into the agriculture ministerial meeting itself and any concluding documents. The G20 MACS works to help find and inform policy decisions made at the agriculture ministerial level. Next slide. So I believe this is my last slide before handing it back to Bree. The G20 meeting of agricultural chief scientists, or we refer to it as the MACS, is an annual gathering of global agricultural science and technology leaders. The USDA has a chief scientist, as many of you know, that is dual-hatted as the Undersecretary for Research, Education, and Economics. The chief scientist for USDA is the head of the US government's delegation to the G20 meeting of Ag Chief Scientists. And the G20 MACS has been an annual meeting since 2012, and it convenes to address pressing global agricultural challenges. Excuse me. It fosters international collaboration and drives innovation to help ensure sustainable global food security. And also, just to highlight, as many of you also may be aware, 2026 has been designated as the United Nations International Year of the Woman Farmer. And so we are seeing alignment and opportunity with the US supported International Year of the Woman Farmer and our activities of the Agriculture Working Group and the G20 MACS in 2026 to bring those two activities and thematic priorities together. And the UN Declaration highlights the critical role of women in agriculture, emphasizes gender equality and empowerment in agricultural research and development. And I believe if you've had a chance to take a look at the request for proposals, there's mention of the International Year of the Woman Farmer as well. So with that, thanks so much.
Thanks, Jamie. All right. So who are the chief scientists? They are high-level agricultural research officials from the G20 member countries, such as interested countries, international research organizations, such as CGIAR. Each chief scientist is accompanied by a delegation of 2 to 4 support staff at each of these meetings, specifically the G20 MACS. So MACS objectives are to inform our stakeholders, share information on global resources, programs, collaborations to address food security, identify research priorities, strengthen and complement research areas for sustainable agriculture, to meet growing intensification to meet growing food demands and climate challenges, facilitate coordination, coordinate resources and initiatives to support identified priorities, track progress, and we are trying to establish baselines and monitor progress towards goals. And last but not least, promote partnerships. We would really like to encourage new collaborations and partnerships. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Far, I believe. Hello, Sahar Moon. She's going to introduce herself and Far and go on to our next slide. Thanks.
Great. Thank you, Bree. Good afternoon, everyone. Wonderful to see you all. I'll tell you just a little bit about FAR and then say a little bit about this opportunity. For those of you who don't know us, the Foundation for Food and Agriculture Research, we call ourselves FAR. We were created in the 2014 Farm Bill, and we form public-private partnerships to support bold food and agriculture research. And in the 10 years since our creation, we've awarded about 400 grants so far. We've built and managed several consortia, and we worked with over 550 partners across the food and agriculture sector. Our research spans across 4 priority areas. We released a research strategy last December covering agroecosystems, food systems, production systems, and we also have a focus on scientific workforce development. We were formed to increase public agriculture investment and to fill knowledge gaps, and in particular to complement the USDA's research agenda. And together with the USDA, we share a common goal of advancing agricultural research and innovation to address global food security challenges. We've worked with USDA on several joint initiatives, including the Aim for Climate Summit, and more recently, the USDA FAR Innovation Challenge, where we supported high-risk, high-reward research done by early career scientists. So we were thrilled that that USDA approached us to partner on this RFP to select a G20 MACS site host. This really provides the opportunity to elevate the United States as a global leader and to strengthen international partnerships. In addition to helping with the site host selection, FAR is also going to support the planning and execution of the G20 MACS meeting along with USDA. So I really see this opportunity as a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for institutions and collaborators to network with global agricultural leaders by becoming a site host. You can showcase your institution's operations, you can demonstrate impact, and really build new lasting international partnerships to advance shared goals. So with that, I'll turn it back to Bree, and you can hear more specifics about this opportunity, but just wanted to say that FAR is really looking forward to partnering with USDA on this and to reviewing proposals that bring together, really looking for a diverse consortium of partners to highlight the strength of U.S. agriculture to the G20 attendees and their invited guests. Thanks.
Thank you. So I'm going to talk about the qualifications, requirements, and provide some logistics specifics for what we're looking for at a site host. So qualifications and requirements. So location eligibility, the site must be managed and owned and controlled by a U.S. entity. That's really important to us. We're just trying to make sure that we feature U.S. agriculture here. We're looking for a host that's got proven experience. The legal organization should have a proven record of successfully hosting a large international conference or events. Financial standing, you must have a strong financial standing and be able to demonstrate the ability to cover costs of the G20 MACS event. You must be eligible to do business with the U.S. government, including being registered and in good standing with SAM.gov. And then we would like you to have experienced staff managing all aspects of an international event. You know, this includes just logistics, coordination, and items like that. We would prefer or would like to have some staff with experience because there is a lot of moving pieces in these events. So event space. So we would like the space, or we need the space to be available anywhere in between April and May 2026. Specifically, we'd like to avoid major global events in the proposed host city. We are aware that in 2026, the FIFA World Cup will be coming to North America. So we do not want the meeting to overlap. If it's in your city, if FIFA World Cup is during that same time, we are trying to not let those two events overlap just because we will have so many people coming in. The location needs to be near a major international airport or within 60 miles. We have a lot of individuals that will be traveling from far away. So just trying to make sure we cut down logistics as much as possible, but also make sure that we get to feature U.S. agriculture, knowing that a lot of agriculture happens in the Midwest or in different spots around the country. We just want to make it easy to get there. Space requirements: at least 5,000 square feet of meeting space with audio-visual equipment. The space should either be within a lodging facility or within walking distance. And this is just to make it a little bit easier on our, on our delegations, because they are coming from far and wide. And then last but not least, designated areas for registration, meals, and particularly side meetings. We will get requests for, places that delegates can meet to have just conversations or maybe some, media. So we want to have that extra space. Accessibility, making sure that the facility can comfortably hold 150 to 175 attendees. And last but not least, accommodation. We would like it to be on-site or nearby with, and then whatever lodging facility it is that they do offer U.S. government per diem rates. So additional requirements and opportunities. We want to leverage a collaborative approach here. So form a diverse consortium, partner with universities, state and local agricultural departments, industry leaders, and nonprofit organizations to support the event. We really want to showcase U.S. agriculture here. I think I've mentioned it a few times. Organizing and engaging field trips to highlight local farmers, our ranchers, foresters, and fishers, their operations. We're really looking for innovative research facilities, sustainable farming practices, local food production and distribution, and then any sort of cultural and historical sites. This is the time to bring in a large international community and show them what you've got. If it's California, if it's Nebraska, we want to see what you've got to show them, and they will enjoy it and will appreciate it. So, and last but not least, we want to enhance the event experience. So we will need refreshment breaks, or we do provide refreshment breaks, coffee breaks, light refreshments to energize attendees. I think we've all sat through long meetings, so those are much needed. And then networking opportunities. So facilitate informal gatherings and social events to foster connections. These are things like sponsoring coffee and tea breaks and just other opportunities for people to sit and chat and maybe hear about your organizations. So there is something that I'd like to highlight here. So the U.S. State Department is going to do a G20 host city selection. So they are going to issue a federal register notice inviting U.S. cities to apply to host portions of the U.S. G20 calendar. So as Jamie mentioned, G20 is larger than the G20 MACS, and the State Department is the lead coordinating department for that. So key points that we want to hit here. This particular RFP is separate from the U.S. State Department's host city selection. Host city responsibilities. So these host cities will host meetings for both the finance and the Sherpa track, and the timeline, they will be identifying those cities between January and February of 2025. So we are a little bit ahead of the State Department. However, there may be potential funding opportunities. So if your city is selected as a host city by the State Department, and we are already coordinating to host the G20 MACS, there could be additional resources available to reduce costs. Example would be G20 branding, meeting space, and other related expenses. So what are the next steps? Please submit a letter of intent by December 11th, 2024. So I'm sure you all got or received some sort of form of communication, whether it be from the USDA or from FAR, that explain that we are looking for letters of intent. This is at the very high level. We're looking for potential hosts to provide us with an overview and value proposition, propose location details, consortium partners, and past experience hosting similar events. We would ask that you use the template that was provided. It's available on FAR's website. And then you email your submissions to events@foundationfar.org. So the deadline will be Friday, December 11th, as I said, at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And late submissions will not be considered. Top candidates will be invited to submit a full application. So we're trying to reduce the work. We just, like I said, would like to get to know you in this portion. So give us your details, and so that we can see what before we ask for you to build it out further.